Yes, people, welcome back to the 1894 for a City versus Leicester Community Shield review. Let's get right into it. Okay, Joe, so the opening match of the 2021-2022 campaign has come to a loss. Obviously, the Community Shield is not the most important game of the season. We said it in our preview that it's basically just a glorified friendly, and I would say the exact same thing even if we had won it. But anyway, it came to a loss for us. We essentially put out our second/third string team for the first half anyway, and that showed. It definitely showed because we were playing against Leicester's essentially top team, and they beat us 1-0. Iheanacho, our own man of the past, came back and he scored a penalty. Didn't celebrate, all credit to him, fairly respectful, but I think we owed him that one. I think we owed him that moment of joy after the little favour he did us the night Company scored against them in the Etihad to help us win the league. But tonight's performance, Joe, before I give you my thoughts, what are your overall thoughts? What are you taking away from it?
I'm taking away more positives than I am negatives. It's disappointing that we lost, but we've come through. We've got no injuries. The squad is a little bit sharper. Grealish has got his debut. We've seen a few EDS players in there. So overall, I'm satisfied with not the result, but I'm satisfied of what we've taken out from the game.
Yeah, the result really doesn't matter at all. You're right. I think we said it on our stream, which didn't go to plan due to technical issues, but when it was going up, we said the main thing we want to take out of today was just no injuries, just get everybody fit and healthy into next week's training and all ready to go for the Spurs game on the opening day of the Premier League season. But yes, Jack Grealish got his debut. He got about 25 minutes and he looked pretty good. Immediately you saw Leicester doubling up on him on that side of the pitch, which wasn't originally happening on a dozy because they knew what threat Grealish posed. He was trying to get involved in the game. He arguably had a good penalty shout that was waved away. He looked good. Other players of note that looked good. Zach Steffen looked good. Nathan Ake was at fault for the penalty. Pretty unforgivable on his part. You can see him telling Rodri, who passes it back to him, to not pass it to him. But a player of his quality in this team should be able to control a ball like that. Lets it go through him, and Iheanacho runs on. Ake gives away a penalty, and the rest is history. But it's unfair on Zach Steffen to say he had a bad game because we lost. You'll see he's actually our man of the match when we do our player ratings in the second half because he was really, really good. He made a world-class save in the first half, and he was very composed. He's going to give Ederson something to think about. But one of the main points I want to talk about, Joe, is the striker situation. Ferran Torres played up front for us today. He looked really lost, right? I am a fan of Ferran Torres. I think there's definitely a future for Ferran Torres at this club. Very talented guy. We saw him look good for Spain in the Euros, and he's had flashes of magic for City since signing. But he looked lost today. He looked like he was in no man's land, wasn't sure what he was doing, and that's fair enough. You know what I mean? He was playing as a lone striker. He's not a striker like through and through. We're trying to make him one, but he's not. I think today highlighted the fact that we do need to go out and go balls to the wall to sign Harry Kane, which there's slight rumours that City are going to press harder now, or else the Tottenham have slightly changed their stance. Another reason to highlight that point is that Fernandinho ended up as our striker for the last 5 or 10 minutes of the game because there was no presence up in that part of the pitch. It looked a bit like last season when we were struggling to get goals. We were creating, we had plenty of ball in the final third as well, but there's just no one there to finish it. If Bernardo put a ball across the 6-yard box, if we had an out-and-out striker, he probably would have tapped that in. And there was a few other opportunities as well. What are your thoughts on that point, Joe?
Just hits home that we desperately need a striker. We're going to struggle without one. For how well Ferran Torres is going to be in the future, he's not, what we need right now. I don't think he's quite good enough to be our number 9. In terms of the way the game panned out, it was probably the hardest position, especially in the first half, because we didn't have a Kevin De Bruyne, we didn't have a Jack Grealish. Our two main creators weren't on the pitch, getting him service. Gundogan put a few good balls. There's enough there, but he was totally non-existent. And I think the worrying thing is now that even though Aguero wasn't playing, he was still training. Torres has got no one to train with anymore to get better as a number 9. He's got no one to learn off. They can teach him stuff on the training ground, but no one is like a top quality striker that he can learn off. So, and we're running out of plan Bs as well. Lukaku's going to Chelsea. I don't think Haaland is within reach anymore. Obviously, Mbappe's out of the question. We don't want Messi because of how it would mess up our finances, and he's not a real number 9 either. So we are running out of options, really. Kane is the main one. He's one of the only ones left.
Yeah, we really, really have to go out and get Kane. I think Pep needs to be going into the board, and you can call us spoiled for saying this, but Pep needs to be going into Khaldoon and Cheeky and the lads tomorrow morning and saying, listen, we need an out-and-out striker. We need someone there to put those chances away and just be on the end of crosses overall, because there's no one there to do so. I mean, we can create 100 chances and we can score maybe 5. Or else we're relying on our midfielders and our wingers to pull us through, like they did so many times last season. But you can't rely on that all the time. It was just magical last season when it did happen. So I'd put today's loss down to, yes, obviously Ake made a crucial mistake, but I will give Ake the credit where it is due. He did do some very good things throughout the game. He made some great challenges. He made some great headed clearances, and he looked up for it. He did. He was just, I suppose, maybe a lapse of concentration. And that's probably why he is one of Pep's least preferred centre-halves to start. So I put it down to his mistake. I put it down to not having an out-and-out striker and overall rustiness. I mean, if you watch the game, you'll see that we did do some good things that maybe midway through last season or the back end of last season when we're at our sharpest would have worked for us. You know, the short passes, the triangles, the movement, the general passing, the overall sharpness just wasn't there today. I mean, Gundogan, who had a decent game in comparison to everyone else, he played some through balls that maybe midway through last season would have got to the man that it was meant to, rather than being slightly overhit when it was today, or underhit or intercepted. So rustiness and then being out without a striker, and then obviously Ake's mistake, which it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not the worst position in the world to be in. I think both two of those three things are very fixable. Sharpness will come with time. Even today will have helped them go into next week and the following weeks after. And then obviously Ake's mistake, you would imagine he won't start anyway. Any big games coming up, it'll most likely be Stones and Diaz, or Laporte and Diaz. And then finally, it's just a matter of putting pressure on Tottenham from our board to get Harry Kane, because like Joe said a second ago, we are running out of, first of all, time, and we're also running out of options. All the big boys are getting snapped up or else staying where they are. And Harry Kane, we know he wants to leave, so it's a matter of how bad do we want it. We need to keep ploughing on and strengthening while we are on top, because we are on top, but that could very easily slip with the way other teams are strengthening up. Chelsea have just got Lukaku. They will be a team to fear. Anyways, that is our thoughts on the game. If you watched it yourself, give us your thoughts down in the comments. Really not the worst thing in the world. I wouldn't get too depressed over it, Blues, but there's stuff to improve on, and we pointed out, I think, the main three things. Let's get over to our player ratings now and see what we gave each player for today's performance. Let's go. Okay, so Stefan was in nets today. Obviously, he is Pep's general second choice goalkeeper, but as Ederson was given a slightly extended holidays, he was called in. He did well throughout pre-season, and today you see the star beside his name. We gave him an 8 because he was man of the match. As I said earlier on in the video, he made one particular save which really stood out. It was a big wow moment. He was going the opposite way to the ball and caught it with the tip of his fingers onto the post. It was a genuinely world-class save, and his overall composure throughout the game was really, really good. His decision making was good. He came off his line when he was called upon, and he was just generally solid. And I think he will give Ederson something to think about, Pep something to think about. I don't think he's going to take Ederson's place anytime soon, but when he's called upon, if he's putting in performances like that, you never know. He could turn Pep's head. And then in defence, we get Mendy a 6, Ake a 6, Diaz a 7, and Cancelo a 7. Now, Mendy and Ake. Mendy he didn't do anything horrendous. He gave the ball away a few times. I'd put that, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say lack of sharpness. A few good crosses, which you always expect from Mendy because he generally is a good crosser on the ball. Ake, I have to give him a 6. I can't give him much higher because of the penalty thing. I really can't. A top class centre half, I think, doesn't get him to that position. Diaz a 7 and Cancelo a 7. Both were fine. Didn't do anything extraordinary. Didn't do anything disastrous. They're just lacking sharpness. Joe, the goalkeeper and the back four, what do you think of those ratings?
Stefan was standout for me. He made a number of good saves, calm on the ball. There was that one, I know when Ake gave the penalty away, the ref initially let the play go on, and he made a brilliant save before the referee pulled it back for the penalty. So, and he almost saved the penalty as well, so it'd be a bit harsh to downgrade him for that because it'd be none of his own fault. Mendy was, I think his best moment came when he fizzed one in and Soyuncu cleared it just over his bar. He almost put it into the back of his own net. Apart from that, it was weird to see a player like Mendy inverting and almost playing as a midfielder at times, considering he is so one-dimensional, or at least to me he's so one-dimensional. So it was a bit odd, but if it's a way he gets into the team, it's a way he has to learn to play. Ake did make that mistake. He kind of switched off. And in terms of Diaz and Cancelo, there's not really much they had to do. The game was won on a penalty. So they did their jobs, really.
Yeah, it was an okay performance from the back four. Like I said, Diaz and Cancelo are just rusty. I think Diaz will keep his place in the team. Cancelo will probably be turf dead for Kyle Walker next week. But anyway, moving to the midfield, Fernandinho, we give a 7. Gundogan an 8, and Palmer a 6. Now, Fernandinho is in the same boat I would put as Diaz and Cancelo. Obviously on ratings as well, but it's just pure rustiness. We have to remember Fernandinho is a 36-year-old man. It will take him slightly longer than the younger player to get up to full match sharpness. I think Fernandinho will still be a crucial element of our team, a crucial member of our team this coming year. But you're going to have to give him a bit of time to get some sharpness up. And same with Rodri, who came on in the second half. He looked a bit rusty, but he was fine. He gave that back pass back to Ake. I really don't put much fault to Rodri for that. I think a good centre half should be able to control that and either manoeuvre himself to give back to his keeper or just literally boot it away. If in doubt, put it out kind of thing. There's 5 minutes to go. Don't take any risks. Gundogan, he's in the same boat as Diaz, Cancelo, and Fernandinho. Rustiness, but slightly better. He got himself in some good positions, had a decent free kick attempt. His passing sometimes was slightly overhit for through balls, maybe intercepted once or twice, but he looks fine, and I think he will be perfectly fine in a couple of weeks' time, and he'll be back up to the 9s and 10s if he gets a few goals. Palmer, my heart goes out to him. I think he's a really talented player. There's definitely a future there for him, but just today, I think he was trying almost too hard. And you're probably saying, Hugh, what do you mean trying too hard? We want our players to try hard, yes. But he seems like he was really desperate to impress, and things just weren't happening for him, which can be really frustrating. I've seen Palmer play loads of times for the EDS. Myself and Joe watched a lot of EDS over the last 6-8 months, and we've seen him play in pre-season, and he looks like a really, really talented guy, and there's a future there for him. Bear in mind, it was his first game in Wembley, one of his first ever games in front of a proper crowd. It was pressure, and he was playing out of position. He's not a number 8. He was playing beside Gundogan as essentially a second 8. He had to get up and down the park. Which is something he's not done before. So I'll give him credit for taking on the challenge first of all and doing an okay job. But things that he would usually work out for him weren't working out today. So I do feel bad from him on that front, but I wouldn't discredit him at all, and I wouldn't be worried about his future. There's still one there. Joe, the midfield.
Fernandinho was just Fernandinho. I think he did the work that he had to do. Again, defensively, we were okay. Defensively, there was nothing to shout home about. Gundogan was, when he was on the pitch, he was our set piece taker for most of set pieces we got. And the corners, again, I just want to touch on corners. Our corners are still absolutely dreadful. I'm pretty sure we got a new set piece coach in to work on them, and they're still awful. Just really poor. There was one time where it was just kicked out for a throw-in, which just kind of sums up our set pieces. But again, a few overhit passes, but I think he was probably the best out of that midfield. He offered the most creativity, and again, Palmer was just like you said, the occasion sort of got to him out of position. He can play off the right, he can play in the 10, plays a false 9. He's not a natural 8 box to box. He's not used to doing that. You can't really be too harsh because he is only a young player after all.
Yeah, and it's not like we were spoiled for options to play that role today either. I mean, De Bruyne, Pep is clearly trying to cotton wool up a little bit before the season, and he's clearly reluctant to give Bernardo very much time at all because Bernardo wants out. So Palmer had to slot him there, and he was okay. I mean, he wasn't dreadful. He didn't cause us any disasters, but Joe's right. The occasion may have got him a little bit. But moving into the front three, we've got Edozie, Torres, and Mahrez. Edozie we gave a 6 to, very similar to Palmer. Edozie had a cracking pre-season for those who have watched that. He scored 3 goals in 3 games. Really talented player. There's definitely a future for him in football and hopefully at Man City because he's a super guy. But things just weren't working for him today. And the thing is, for Palmer and Edozie, those kind of days happen. All the best players in the world have them where it's just not your day. Things just won't happen. He got himself into some good positions. I think he maybe lacked a bit of confidence to back himself to take on the right full for Leicester, whoever that was. And of course, he had one fantastic opportunity, which he quite badly mishit, and it ended up in the stand, which maybe on another day he'd hit the target or he'd work the keeper or could possibly hit the back of the net. For Torres, It was a tough day at the office. It really, really was. We gave him a 5 because he just looked confused. He looked lost. He looked out of touch with the game, and you have to feel bad for him. It's similar to Palmer playing essentially out of position, even though Torres has done it slightly more than Palmer has done the 8 role. But he's not a striker, Palmer or Torres. At the end of the day, he is a winger, which we're trying to convert into a striker. So to be told you're playing on your own as a striker with Palmer, Gundogan, who are all rusty behind you, it's not going to be easy. Then Mahrez we gave the 6 to because he missed 2 or 3 opportunities, which were, you'd expect some of his class to get. He was okay. He was fine. Nobody on this team was amazing today. That's why the main takeaway is just rustiness, which will come over time. But Joe talked about set pieces for a sec. Just before you talk about the front three, Joe, I want to highlight your point on the set pieces, which does add to the number 9 conversation. If we had a proper striker in the box, we would be able to launch corners on top of the keeper or into the 6-yard box or on the penalty spot and expect someone to thump them in. So that's just another point to add to the why Pep and the board need to really pursue Harry Kane. But Joe, Edozie 6, Torres 5, Amara 6. Your thoughts?
Again, we highlight this, the 2 young players in the team, just they're playing at Wembley. It's a big stage for them. It's a big step up from under 23s and under 18s football, so you can't be too harsh. Torres there was a few times where he just failed to make a run at all. He looked like he was about to go and break through the lines, and then he kind of stopped and the pass had already gone, and he just never seemed to pick up the ball in any useful position. He didn't really drop deep to come and try and get himself involved either, which is something that is frustrating for him. But for us, it's good because, you've got someone in that area, but it didn't really come to much in the end. And then Mahrez was, he was in charge of the set pieces when Gundogan came off. Again, set pieces are just poor all round, but they have been for a while. We don't really have anyone to aim for, especially when we got Ake, who's only 5'11". With the pre-season that Mahrez had, you maybe would have expected a bit more because he had a really, really good pre-season in them 3 games. He was by far and away probably the best player, and pretty poor today.
Yeah, that's kind of been the common line about Mahrez is he blows hot and cold, doesn't he? I mean, he could turn up for a few weeks and absolutely blow the opposition away, and then for another 2 or 3 weeks he could be non-existent or do things that you wouldn't expect him to do. But yeah, it was tough for Ferran Torres, and the thing is, he does not have anyone to learn off. I think you mentioned that he has no one to learn off. You can get coaches in to tell him what to do, but he can't. His positional awareness as a number 9 is pretty well non-existent because he's not done it before. He needs someone like Harry Kane, a top form striker, to look at and watch what he does, watch the runs he makes, the runs off the shoulder, the positions he gets himself into. If his desire is to become a number 9, which it seems to be the case, that Pep wants him to play there. So yeah, listen, it was a tough day at the office for those who were on the pitch, but it was probably beneficial more than anything. It was beneficial to get some of the shake some of the shackles off, get rid of some of that rust before the main one next week. It's the opening day of the Premier League season. It's down at one of our traditional bogey teams' home stadiums, Tottenham. We could very easily drop points there and get off to the worst start possible, which if you want to retain your title, while there's going to be so many teams challenging for it, you can't afford to be dropping points this early in the season. So I'd rather we do make our mistakes today and get rid of our rustiness today, get another week of training under the belt now, and then be in the best position we can for Spurs next week, because it will be a huge test, and you best believe that Spurs crowd and all the Spurs players and manager will want to give us an absolute thumping to basically say you're not taking Harry Kane off us, or all that psychological stuff. Where we'll be going into war essentially with them next week. So listen, today I'd forget about it. Honestly, I really would. It's nothing to dwell on. I think everyone would agree with me on that anyway. So leave your thoughts on the player ratings down below. Would you give anyone higher? Would you give anyone lower? Does it even really matter to you? Let us know anyway what you thought on the game. Leave a like on the video as well if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. All that helps. We're on the road to 400 now, so every little like and subscribe helps us that bit more. So do that, and we'll see you very, very soon, hopefully with some more transfer news or else content for the Tottenham game next week. Enjoy your week.